Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out U.S. states that kept their British names. Look at the face on this guy. Scary.
Hello, last month I told you about 6
Hello.
American cities that completely outgrew their British originals. But what if I
watched
told
that
you
one.
it wasn't just America's urban areas that retained their British name, and that 10 US states did the same thing? And I should know because
I love how he says name.
they outgrew their British originals. But what if I told you it wasn't just America's urban areas that retained their British name, and that 10 US states did the same thing? And I should know because I've been to 7 of them. That is not a humble brag, it's a brag. See, back in the 1600s, Britain was busy colonising various coastal areas around the world.
Right.
And because creativity wasn't our thing, we decided, you know what, we're just going to name all of our colonies after places and people from back home. That's why
Hey, you gotta, they must have had to come up with names all the time. It gets old. That's a lot of mental energy, right?
you know what, we're just going to name all of our colonies after places and people from back home. That's why the United States ended up with states that sound like they belong in a Shakespearean soliloquy. Some are obvious, while others have a British origin story that you didn't even know about. Here are 10 US states that are surprisingly British.
All right. Delaware.
If you
This one was on the thumbnail, and it looks like it was Delaware. Of the where. He's of the where.
If you know anything about Delaware, it's probably one of 3 things. It was the first state to ratify the Constitution. It has really friendly corporate tax laws, and you've never met anyone from there. But what you might not know is that the name Delaware comes from this bloke called Thomas West, who in England was 3rd Baron Delaware, which, let's be honest, sounds like the name of a Downton Abbey character who's about to faint from scandal. But the earldom, pronounced the same way as the US state, still exists in Britain in the form of this man. But 400 years earlier, Delaware was a British nobleman, an early colonial governor of Virginia, and the inspiration for Delaware's name. Ironic, really, because the guy never actually set foot in Delaware, and even I've done that, mate. Now, people from Delaware, if they even exist, might point out a caveat with this one. Delaware River and Delaware Bay are what actually took their names from Lord Delaware, and the state in turn took its name from them. But internet listicles like this thrive on technicalities, which is how I was able to get away with this.
Who is this Lord Delaware fella? Show me on the internet somewhere. An English nobleman for whom the bay, the river, and consequently a Native American people in U.S. state all later called Delaware. There's a Native American tribe called Delaware? There have been 2 creations of Baron Delaware, and West came from the second. He was the son of Thomas West, 2nd Baron Delaware of Warewell Abbey in Hampshire, making him a great-grandson of Mary Boleyn, the sister of Anne Boleyn. The 2nd wife of King Henry VIII. Wow, that's some family drama. He went to Oxford, Queen's College in Oxford. He was in the army. He was charged with supporting Essex's ill-fated insurrection against Queen Elizabeth I, but acquitted of those charges. He was the largest investor in the London Company, which received 2 charters to settle colonists in the New World. Okay. In 1610, Captain Samuel Argall named Delaware Bay in honor of Lord Delaware. Shortly afterwards, Dutch settlers along the bay gave it a different name, but the name Delaware Bay was restored when the English took control of the area in 1665. All right, that's enough about him. What's next? Maryland.
Yep, Maryland, or as we say in Britain, Maryland, the state that gave us Old Bay seasoning, the Chesapeake Bay, and wait, is that actually their state flag? What is happening there? It was also named after a woman called Henrietta Maria of France, to which Uncle Toby is currently typing,
I can't wait to hear your explanation for this.
and my explanation is simple, because while she might have been as French as an outdoor cafe, Henrietta was also married to Charles I of England, Scotland, and Ireland. This meant that when Maryland was established in 1632, Henrietta Maria was Queen of the British Isles. Like all British monarchs before 1939, she never visited what is today the US, much less Maryland. But Maryland isn't just historically British, it still holds on to some of its British roots today. Just look at Annapolis, itself named after Queen Anne, the monarch, not the chocolate-covered cherries. With its colonial-style buildings and nearby Renaissance Festival, it's about as close to an old English town as you can get in America. And yes, I did win a medal for axe throwing. What have you done? And speaking of accessing British things in America, sometimes I just want to kick back and watch
VPN?
Match of the Day without random edits or excessive ad breaks. So how does a Brit like me access UK TV from across the pond? Well, I've been using NordVPN.
Y'all be sure to go to NordVPN. Buy a t-shirt. I want to look up this Maryland lady. I got sidetracked by that NordVPN ad. Henrietta Maria. She was the Queen of England, Scotland, and Ireland from her marriage to King Charles I on June 13, 1625, until his execution on January 30th, 1549. She was the mother of Charles II and James II and VII. Under a decree of her husband, she was known in England as Queen Mary. But she did not like this name and signed her letters Henrietta. She was Catholic, and English people didn't like that. Oh, Maryland was a major haven for Roman Catholic settlers. That's why they named it after her. Oh, she was the youngest daughter of Henry IV of France and his second wife, Marie de Medici. She was a Medici. How did she die? Oh, she suffered from bronchitis. Her nephew was Louis XIV. Wow. And the maternal grandmother of Louis XV, making her an ancestor of most of today's European royal families. She died near Paris, having taken an excessive quantity of opiates as a painkiller on the advice of Louis XIV's doctor, Antoine Vallot, for having a serious lung infection at the time. Wow. Great doctor. Louis XIV died too. What's going on there? Georgia.
These days, Georgia is known
King
for
George.
peaches, Coca-Cola, and shutting down at the sight of 2 inches of snow. But originally, Georgia was named...
How did he know that? Is that well known? It's true. I used to live in Atlanta, and when it snows, the whole city shuts down. It's great. I loved it.
Coca-Cola and shutting down at the sight of 2 inches of snow. But originally, Georgia was named after a British monarch who was also German. Back in 1732, Georgia was initially founded as a debtors' colony, a place where people who owed too much money could start fresh, a sort of giant credit repair service. But after this plan never got off the ground, the colony fell under the purview of the man who inspired its name, King George II of Britain. Without ever visiting, he would rule over the Georgia colony until 1760, which is when his body stopped working. Thanks to the Boston Tea Party and the musical Hamilton, most Americans are more familiar with his grandson, King George III. But despite America's overall ridicule of G3, his wife, Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, still has her branding all over an entire county. It wasn't just Carolinian subregions that got the royal treatment. That's right, the Carolinas were themselves named after a British monarch. Remember earlier when I said this? Henrietta was also married to Charles I of England, Scotland and Ireland. The Carolinas were established as one colony in a charter issued by King Charles's son, Charles II, who's seen here cosplaying as Cher. The land was granted to 8 English noblemen as a reward for helping Charles II assume the English throne, but with one caveat, that they name it Carolina after his father, whose name, Charles, comes from the Latin name Carolus. Actually, the Charleses have their 17th century fingerprints all over the Carolinas. Charleston literally means Charlestown, after being named after C-3PO. C2. Charles II. Ironically, of the 3 of them, only C-3PO has ever visited, but to be fair to the other 2, they didn't have Comic-Con back then, which is pretty sad when you look at their costumes.
So when did it go from King Charles to King George? You know? King Charles's great-grandfather, King George V, was the Windsor monarch, and today's working royals are descendants of King George and his wife, Queen Mary. Oh, so George came before Charles. Okay. Well, I mean, there have been several Georges and several Charleses, right? That's interesting because I know my ancestors or some of them, came from England and were sent to the Carolinas to colonize that. And then whenever Florida became British territory, or English territory, they were sent down to Florida to colonize that.
New Hampshire, the state that gives us live free or die license plates, aggressive maple syrup enthusiasm, and that 1 month a year when the leaves turn into an Instagram trend. But long before it became a magnet for leaf peepers and libertarians, New Hampshire was named after the county of Hampshire in England. The original Hampshire, which is located on England's southern coast, is best known for historic naval bases, countryside villages, and stone cold Jane Austen. No. And back in 1629, a group of English settlers, led by Captain John Mason, decided to name their new colony in honour of the English county. Unfortunately for Mason, he died before he ever set foot in New Hampshire, and I'm beginning to see why we lost. But despite being an American state for centuries, New Hampshire still has some very British traits. For instance, the state, which I drove through once, has a love of dry humour, an appreciation for understatement, and a general disdain for being told what to do, so very British.
Let's look up Old Hampshire. Show me on a map. There it is. Wow, it's huge. It's as big as London. Winchester Cathedral. Oh, Jane Austen's house. Now I see what he meant. Stone Cold Jane Austen. Hampshire is a ceremonial county in southeast England. It is bordered by Berkshire to the north, Surrey and West Sussex to the east, the Isle of Wight across the Solent to the south, Dorset to the west, and Wiltshire to the north. The city of Southampton is the largest settlement. Oh, period. Wow. What is this? Spinnaker Tower. What's up with that? Is this it? Ah, what's the deal with this thing? Landmark tower with an on-site cafe and glass-floored platform overlooking Portsmouth Harbor. Portsmouth. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Show me some photos of it. Wow. It looks gigantic. Cool. All right, New Hampshire. New Jersey.
New Jersey, land of diners, casinos, and people called Evan. But before it was the Garden State, New Jersey was named after the Channel Island of Jersey, a British crown dependency off the coast of France. Jersey, the island, is known for its dairy cows, medieval castles, and being technically British, but also kind of French, much like New Jersey if you swap French for Italian delis. The name came about in 1664 when the land was granted to another obviously posh bloke called Sir George Carteret. Carteret, I don't know if the T's silent. You see, George himself was governor of the island and seemed to want to own land that reminded him of the fabric. When it came time to appointing the first governor of New Jersey, Carteret believed only one man could earn the position on merit: his cousin Philip. Notable among Philip's achievements was that he was born in one Jersey and died in the other, which proves that I know how to read Wikipedia summaries.
Where is Jersey? Show me on. There it is. Oh wow. I'm surprised at how close it is to France. It's by Guernsey, a self-governing dependency of the United Kingdom with a mix of British and French cultures. It is known for its beaches, cliffside walking trails, inland valleys, and historic castles. Wow, cool. A pool. Palm trees. A road. A pole. Wow, what is that? Beautiful. Very beautiful. Oh, grass. A fountain. Beach. Wow. I'm surprised it's British and not French, just because of the location, you know?
New York is not only one of the most famous cities in the world, it's also the name of the state that it's in, as in the geographical state, not the mental one. The common assumption is that both were named after the historic city in England, but this is only true if we're talking about the New York in Lincolnshire. And I know what you're thinking, ooh, Lawrence, since when does England have a New York? Well, it doesn't. It has 3. But the famous one in America was named after the Duke of York, who would later become King James II. In 1664, James received a patent to the Dutch colony of New
What was that? I didn't get that.
That's 3. But the famous one in America was named after the Duke of York, who would later become King James II. In 1664, James received a patent to the Dutch colony of New Netherland from his brother and fellow Led Zeppelin fanatic, Charles II. Amid heightened tensions between the British and the Dutch, the former took the colony from the latter. New Netherland became the province of New York, New Amsterdam became New York City, and James never ever visited.
So there are 3 New Yorks in England? In Britain? New York, UK. New York? Whoa. Okay. Okay. A gas station, a sign, a blue doorway, a sign, a road sign. I had no idea. I didn't know there was a New York, UK. Wow. William Penn? Is that his name?
Pennsylvania, land of the Liberty Bell, Hershey's chocolate, and as it happens, a city that was named after former British Prime Minister William Pitt. But, confusingly, the state itself was named after a similar-sounding politician, William Penn, who, sure enough, never visited Pennsylvania. And as we speak, I've just received this fax from Uncle Toby saying,
You're talking rubbish, you daft sod. Not only did William Penn visit Pennsylvania, he also lived in Pennsylvania. Cretin.
and that might be true of the William Penn who founded it, but the colony wasn't named after him, it was named after his dad. And why was this? Because the colony was gifted to Penn the Younger by Charles II, who was previously indebted to Penn the Elder, who by now had turned into just bones. Today, Pennsylvania, or Penn's Woods for people who don't like Latin, is a place I know better than anybody else because I, spent a week there once.
You ran up the Rocky Steps, y'all. Way to go, Lawrence. Not easy. Show me on Wikipedia who William Penn was. An English writer, religious thinker, and influential Quaker. This says he founded it, but I thought it was given to him. Oh, King Charles II granted a large piece of his North American landholdings along with North Atlantic Ocean coast to Penn to offset debts he owed to Penn's father, the admiral and politician Sir William Penn. The land included the present-day states of Pennsylvania and Delaware. He then journeyed further north up the Delaware River and founded Philadelphia on the river's western bank. Wow, that seems like an oversimplification, doesn't it? Can you just go up a river? This looks like a good place for a city. Let's build one here. Wouldn't there be more planning? Or maybe not? I don't know. How did he die? He first called it New Wales, then Sylvania, but then King Charles II changed it to Pennsylvania to honor William Penn's father, Sir William Penn. How did he die? In 1718 at age 73. That's pretty good for back then. Wow. Penn died penniless at his home in Ruscombe, near Twyford in Berkshire, and is buried in a grave next to his first wife, Gulielma. Doesn't say how he died, but he was penniless. Wow, that's surprising. He should have sold the land. Virginia.
Ah, yeah, Virginia, the state that gave us the first English colony, the most US presidents, and an unhealthy obsession with the phrase Virginia is for lovers, which quite frankly raises more questions than answers. But long before it was the birthplace of America and aggressively passionate tourism slogans, Virginia was named after one of the most famous British monarchs of all time.
Can I name these presidents? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Zachary Taylor, oh, he looks familiar. Millard Fillmore. He looks really familiar. I should know who that is. Hang on. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, Zachary Taylor, Woodrow Wilson's the guy that's Woodrow Wilson. Okay. All right. Bunch of assholes, probably.
And an unhealthy obsession with the phrase Virginia is for lovers, which quite frankly raises more questions than answers. But long before it was the birthplace of America and aggressively passionate tourism slogans, Virginia was named after one of the most famous British monarchs of all time, Queen Elizabeth I. You see, back in the 1500s, England was itching to get in on the New World action. And since Elizabeth never married or had kids, she was given the charming nickname the Virgin Queen, which, let's be honest, sounds more like an HBO series than a regal title.
Oh, it's
So when Sir
does,
Walter
yeah.
Raleigh, after whom Raleigh, North Carolina is named, organised voyages to the unsuccessful Roanoke colony, he decided to name the whole region Virginia in honour of Elizabeth's marital status, or lack thereof. And in
That's strange, isn't it? That wasn't her name. That was her state of being. That was her sexual label, and that's what the state's named after. That's strange. Did she like that? Did she
name
go
the whole
along with
region
it?
Virginia in honour of Elizabeth's marital status, or lack thereof. And in true tradition of British nobility never setting foot in the places named after them, Elizabeth never visited Virginia because, well, she was too busy ruling an empire and dodging assassination attempts. Plus
Right.
it took 2 months to get there, so ain't no monarch doing that.
2
Thanks for
months.
watching, and also for typing, wow, Lawrence mentioned my state, even if I didn't. If videos about Britain's influence on
didn't.
the American map is your thing, here's me talking about American cities that completely outgrew their British namesakes. You'll watch that next. Until the next video, goodbye.
Goodbye, Lawrence. Y'all be sure to go to Lost in the Pond and like and subscribe. Let's check out Virginia. What happens if I just type in the Virgin Queen? Oh, she shows right up. Oh yeah, she was the only surviving child of Henry VIII and second wife Anne Boleyn. Her mother was executed. Oh right, beheaded. And Elizabeth was declared illegitimate, but Henry restored her to the line of succession when she was 10. Wow, how did she die? Oh my god, this Wikipedia. Virginity. Hang on, there's a section called Virginity. Let's go back to that. Virginity. Catholic cause, Mary Queen of Scots, virginity. Elizabeth's unmarried status inspired a cult of virginity related to that of the Virgin Mary. In poetry and portraiture, she was depicted as a virgin, a goddess, or both, not as a normal woman. Wow, so I guess, yeah, it's not that weird that it was named Virginia, I guess, because it was a thing. It like, people were already talking about it. It was a fad, for lack of a better term, right? In 1561, she was mysteriously bedridden with an illness that caused her body to swell. Oh, they think that could have been a pregnancy. Interesting. Maybe she wasn't a virgin. Maybe that was her way of seeming godlike, maintaining power, and intimidating people. I like that. How did she die? I'm sure this is common knowledge in the UK, but I have no idea. How did she die? Was she beheaded, like her mother? She fell sick and remained in a settled and unremovable melancholy, and sat motionless on a cushion for hours on end. Many now believe she died of blood poisoning, but a post-mortem at the time wasn't permitted. Well, there you go. The British influence continues today. Amazing. Wow. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.